It's Tuesday, the 26th of November, 2024. Welcome to the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, 5 stories in 5 minutes. Let's go with story number 1. It is a very busy final week of the sitting year for federal parliament, with the bill to ban social media for under 16-year-olds front and centre. Amid 76 unpassed bills, there's quite an agenda here.
There is. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said world leaders at the G20, where he was last week, said they're watching Australia's effort to limit online platforms for under 16-year-olds. He hopes the bill, which has bipartisan support, will pass this week. There was actually a parliamentary committee meeting on it yesterday. What came out of it was that not everyone agrees with the idea, including youth mental health organisations, and no one seems to know how it will work. Labor's also trying to push through some of its housing policies to help to buy housing policy that'll see the government co-purchase homes with about 40,000 first home buyers. There's also the build to rent legislation introduced this week, provides new tax incentives for investors. Both are likely to fail. That provides a trigger for a double dissolution election. Resources Minister Madeleine King urged the opposition Greens and crossbenchers to support tax cut incentives for net zero industries. We're talking about $13.7 billion worth of tax credits. Opposition leader Peter Dutton previously called the changes corporate welfare for billionaires. Not sure how that one will go. However, the government is likely to get through new legislation on aged care and political donations and possibly fee-free TAFE.
And just quickly, Sean, the government is, aside from legislation, the government is feeling the heat on everything from the cost of living crisis through to international diplomacy at the moment.
It's quite possible that this will be the final sitting week of this parliament. In fact, election could be called. It's got to be won by the middle of May next year. We'll get a budget update next week. The cost of living crisis is hurting the government, according to the polls. They would love to see a rate cut by May next year. Unlikely. Another big issue at the moment is the fact that the International Criminal Court has issued an arrest warrant for Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu. Yesterday, Foreign Minister Penny Wong indicated, not said, but indicated that he would be arrested if he came to Australia.
Story number 2, another day, another record for the local share market, with the S&P ASX 200 hitting a new intraday high and a closing high.
So it was on the back of Donald Trump nominating a guy called Scott Bessent as Treasury Secretary. He seems a more sensible pick than some of Donald Trump's other picks. That helped the local share market hit a record late yesterday morning, 8,458.9 points by the close. It was at 8,417 points. That's the first time it's ever closed above 8,400 points. The interest rate sensitive sectors did best. Think property, healthcare, consumer discretionary. Iron ore prices pushed up the big miners. Higher energy prices helped the oil and gas stocks, but the bank stocks were lower after a ruling from the regulator. One thing you got to mention, or I should mention, Commonwealth Bank, it ended up lower, but not before it hit a new record high yesterday of $160.27 a share.
That is quite extraordinary. Story number 3, Deputy Prime Minister Richard Marles is being sued by his Chief of Staff, Joe Tanovsky, under the Fair Work Act, claiming adverse action in the form of victimisation.
Via her lawyer, Michael Bradley, Ms. Tanovsky claims she raised concerns of bullying from senior members of staff with Mr. Marles, and her treatment as a result of that was adverse action, which is unlawful. In a statement, she said, and I quote, 6 weeks ago, I spoke out publicly to reveal what was happening to me behind closed doors. As far as I know, there has been no investigation into the behaviours I reported, nor regarding the actions taken by the Deputy Prime Minister against me. Not a single member of government has reached out to check on my well-being. 3 weeks ago, I wrote a letter to the Prime Minister asking him to intervene and hold the Deputy Prime Minister to account for the way I had been treated. The Prime Minister has not responded. She said the government needs to learn from her experiences. Ms. Tarnowski is still employed as Mr. Miles' Chief of Staff, but on leave.
Just a quick one for story number 4, Sean. Private equity group Pacific Equity Partners has made a bid for SG Fleet Group, sending its share price up more than 20%.
Always good to get a deal in these stories, Michael. The $1.2 billion bid provides an exit for South African-based Super Group, which owns 53% of SG Fleet Group. Yesterday, the board said it's in the best interests to engage with Pacific Equity Partners and granted them exclusive due diligence. A binding offer is expected some point after this week.
Last one, story number 5, bad news for coffee drinkers. Prices are soaring on the back of expected poor crops in Vietnam and Brazil.
They're the two biggest coffee producers, and Brazil's the biggest exporter. Mind you, Michael, the biggest drinkers, number 1, the Dutch, then the Finnish. Tens of millions of cups of coffee consumed every day. Last year, 164 million 60-kilo bags were produced around the world. Arabica futures are up 60% this year and at a 13-year high. Now, Arabica coffee beans are the style that most Australians consume. Some of the big buyers like Nestle have warned that it will up prices. Unfavourable weather in Brazil, also in Vietnam, has hurt the crops, but also people are now consuming groups that require more coffee. Forget the single shot, flat, white. We're talking double shots all over the place.
There we go, the top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It is Tuesday, the 26th of November, 2024. Remember to hit follow on the podcast, and if 5 minutes isn't enough, you can find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed, wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.